Okay, so this is an explanation of Cat 4. That's the fourth common assessment task you have for Year 10 history. Now, as you know, we're currently doing Depth Study 2, which is Rights and Freedoms. We've already had a look at the civil rights movement in the United States with African Americans, and now we're turning our attention to civil rights and Indigenous peoples in Australia. Your assignment is a small group research task. So here you can see it says small group research task. The instructions explain that in small groups of 3, and I am going to negotiate those groups with you, you'll be allocated one of the following topics. And as you can see here, there are 8 topics, all of which relate to the issue of civil rights and citizenship of Indigenous peoples in Australia. Now here, of course, Indigenous peoples aren't just Aboriginal, they're also Torres Strait Islanders. And what you can see is this list of topics is arranged chronologically. So 1938, which was a 150-year anniversary of the First Fleet arrival, this is the day of mourning, and so on and so forth, right through to Kevin Rudd's sorry speech in 2008. So there's room here for you to note down your students once they've been negotiated with me. So moving on down, you're going to be given 4 periods to work on this assessment in class, and for my class, Dr. Hart's class, those 4 periods will occur in the week starting April 29th. So that entire week, which is week 3, term 2, you're going to spend in 218, which is a computer lab, and you're going to be given time to do the 2 tasks that are put together add up to this CAT. So the first task is a research report, and as you can see, it's due Monday, May the 6th. So you really need to use the time you have in class effectively. Now you and your group, so 3 of you, are going to research your allocated topic. Now I have put a resource file, here it is, on the hub, which contains a range of resources. Now a lot of these resources are resources that have been produced by places like the National Museum of Australia, and at the back of those resources they have a reference list or a bibliography that provides you with a whole range of other references you can access. So part of this task requires you to be able to identify, locate and use or utilise a range of reputable history sites or historical sites. Now you're expected to find resources and readings beyond those that are supplied. So don't think that the stuff on the hub is everything that you can use. You can use beyond that. In fact, you're expected to. I don't want to see the use of Wikipedia. And remember, any site that you use must be referenced in a bibliography. Okay? So you cannot simply cut and paste large chunks of text. That's called plagiarism. So with your research report, you have to be able to answer these questions. So these are the questions that are going to drive the research you undertake. And I'm going to suggest really 1 or 2 periods maximum of the 4 should be for actual collection of information. So you need to be able to tell me what happened with the event. What happened? This is just a basic recount. What, when, and where did it occur? More difficult is why did the event occur? Because different people may have different points of view on why it occurred. You need to identify who was involved, and importantly, who are the people who supported a particular event, and who are those people that opposed it. And you don't want to fall into the trap of just saying, well, of course, Indigenous people supported it and non-Indigenous people opposed it. It's far more complex than that often. You'll find that people within the Indigenous community will variably support and oppose, and within the non-Indigenous community will do the same. Now, what were the main outcomes of the event? In other words, what happened as a result of this particular event? Now, I don't just want the successful or positive outcomes, I want the positive and negative. Now, who was most affected by the event? So here, you're not just doing a recount. This isn't just a recount of what happened. It's a research report where you're actually searching a range of historical sites and references to come up with some answers to some more difficult questions. So who was most affected by the event? And this is perhaps the most important part of your research project, and that is, what was the significance of this event in the development of Indigenous citizenship and civil rights? So how significant was this event? If you think back to our study of civil rights in America, think about Emmett Till. Many people say that was the spark that set, I guess, the flame for an incredible surge in civil rights movement and the birth of the non-violent protest movement. Let's now use that sort of analogy within an Australian climate. How important was this particular event in the whole span of Indigenous citizenship and civil rights movement? That means you can't just focus on your event. You've actually got to have a look at your event in the context of other events. As a group, you then need to use these questions here, A through J, as subheadings for your report. You need to develop a 600-word report. Now, I'll get many questions about 600 words. What does 600 words mean? It means 10% above or below. So I don't want more than 660 words. Why am I being tough on this? Because you need to be able to write concisely. Okay, so you've got to work out what is the most important vital information and what is the extraneous information that I don't need to include. So use these subheadings to write your report. Your report must be concise and clearly respond to these questions. If you just recount or retell me the actual event, that's not going to suffice. Your report must include a bibliography. Now, that's not going to be part of the word count, so don't feel like you're stuck with, oh, I can only have 2 references in my bibliography. You also need to, in your bibliography, note down any of the resources you used from the hub. So any of the ones that I've put up there that you use have to go in the bibliography. Now, part of this task is teaching you to find and use reliable sources. So think carefully. Think back to the session that we did on the Martin Luther King website that was in fact authored by Stormfront, which is a white supremacist group. You don't want to make that mistake. You want it to be a reliable source. So that's task 1, 600-word report. You handed in on May the 6th. At the same time, starting that day, you will be in your group doing a PowerPoint and oral presentation. So using your research report as a guide, you need to prepare a 4-minute PowerPoint, shortened to PPT presentation, or equivalent multimedia presentation. If you want to use Camtasia, you can go for it. But I'm not going to give you extra time to do that. And as this is a group task, you need to be able to do whatever you're doing in the allocated time in class. Your presentation isn't just your research report in PowerPoint form. It's got to be better than that. It's identifying the most important parts of your report and focusing on explaining your event and its significance to the audience, which is your peers. Now, in addition to your report, because a lot of the information from your report, of course, will be relevant, you need to have a range of visual sources in this. So each PowerPoint slide should have minimal text and have some visual sources. You'll then orally, using cue cards if you like, explain the visual sources in terms of what they tell us about the event and its significance. Now, I'm also going to ask you to do a slightly more difficult task, and that is an historiography task. Historiography is the study of different historians' opinions of the past. So I want you to find different opinions on your event. Do different people see this event in a different way? And why do you think that's so? For example, an historian who at the time was very involved in the Indigenous rights movement might have a very favourable view, whereas someone who perhaps wasn't part of it or has a bias might not have a favourable view. Importantly, each member of your group has to have a speaking role. Okay, so this is a group role. It's about collaboration. And at the end of the presentation, the audience, your peers, will be asked or invited to ask any questions of you. So you should be ready to answer that. Now, what's this assessment worth? It's worth 20% of your semester grade, and it's marked out of 40. Each task is going to be marked out of 20 marks. That means the research report is worth 20 marks, and the PowerPoint presentation is worth 20 marks. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Both have to be good. In fact, your PowerPoint presentation cannot be good without your research report being really thorough. And when I say thorough, I don't mean long, I mean high quality. So, what are you getting marked on? What do you have to do? Let's have a look at task 1, the research report. The first thing you need to be able to do is find historical sources. And here, I don't mean sources like cartoons or primary source documents. I mean references. You're given a folder on the hub which has a range of references, but you need to go beyond that. And you'll notice the resources on the hub aren't all prettily done and sectioned up for you. You need to search through them and filter important information from them. Okay, so one thing you might do as a group is divvy those up and start doing some sort of breakdown or analysis of what's available. Then you can look for gaps. Does the stuff on the hub, the resources I've provided you with, does that allow you to answer all those questions that you need to do for your report? Well, if not, you need to find more resources. Now, your research report needs to be able to explain the event. And in your explanation, talk about who supported it, who opposed it, what were the outcomes. Importantly, you need to talk about how significant this event was. So this one event, how important was it to the broader struggle for citizenship and civil rights, particularly for Aboriginal people in Australia? Now, a research report is a particular style, so you need to be able to write in research report writing format. Use subheadings you're supposed to. Paginate, have page numbers. Make sure that it is in at least a 12-point font with 1.5 line spacing so that I can read it easily. Proofread your work so there isn't ridiculous silly errors in it. Please make sure you use appropriate historical terms. So this is the use of formal language. Make sure your spelling's okay and your grammar's okay. And of course, it needs to beat a word count. So as you can see, 4 criteria, because they're multiple, each worth 5 marks, gives you a mark of 20. Then you have the PowerPoint and oral presentation. Of course, because it's an oral presentation, you're being marked on your actual presentation. It needs to be collaborative, all group members involved. You need to think about your tone, your pace, and your use of gestures. In essence, you are teaching the audience about this event, not just what happened, but who supported it, who didn't, what was the outcome, how important is this, how significant is it? Okay, so you need to be able to clearly and effectively get that across. Of course, you also need to be able to demonstrate that different people may see this event in a different light. 4 criterion again, 4 criteria, 5 marks each, a total mark of 20. Okay, so if you have any questions about this assessment, I suggest you email me via the hub so that other people, well, I can at least post it on the hub so that I can reply to it and share it around. Okay, so best of luck with this. I know you'll rise to the challenge and I look forward to seeing the outcome of this assignment. Thanks very much.